Hello and welcome to Meow Mix, a Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Jerry. Steven is not here today. Unfortunately, he's under the weather. So I will be doing this one solo. With that being said, it's always sad to do these solo as you kind of lose that give and take. So I did ask him to kind of give some quick hits on his thoughts of the training camp so far. And I will go ahead and read those. Here we go. I'm happy with what I've heard about Mingo and Bryce. In particular, Horn has looked really good. Sanders has had some moments and got a shout out from Canales the other day. I also just like Canales' vibe. I'm getting more optimistic by the day that this team could easily win 5 games. He also went on to say how much he loves Ian Thomas. Obviously, that part is joking for you longtime listeners. So we're just going to quickly go over some camp notes, go over the camp battles, kind of show you where we're discussing, where we're looking at one weekend. Not much is happening. I mean, they're all one padded practice has happened. They're going down to Clemson for the Fan Fest, which is August 1st on a Thursday. I thought that was very odd. I get going to Clemson, but a Thursday night just seems very odd. But let's get into it. Training camp notes. Start off, running back Rashad Penny retired. Happy trails. I mean, he really wasn't here, but a couple weeks I'm not devastated at his loss. I always thought he was going to be competing with Blackshear for that third or fourth type of role. He may have just seen the writing on the wall and not wanting to compete. I mean, it's hot outside. I get it. And if you've got the money, then you could go on. I mean, I don't blame you one bit. But I think that's kind of solidifies what most people think. It's going to be Chuba, Miles Sanders, and Brooks when he's healthy. They did sign a running back from Washington, but he's probably more of a camp body than anything else. They also signed wide receiver Tavion Robinson when they made this move. Camp body. I mean, nothing against these guys, but I don't foresee them making the roster. I think they're out here to show something, maybe make a practice squad and everything. Good luck. Moving on. Tight end Felipe Franks was signed as Tommy Tremble is not practicing due to injury. Okay. I mean, if he can make some plays, you never know. He may be able to go. I thought he was done. I did not realize he was still playing. He's been in the league for a while now. He was actually a quarterback. Let me see here. Felipe Franks. He's only 26 years old. Yeah. He was a former quarterback with Florida and Atlanta, and now he's a tight end here. Now I'm kind of curious about this guy. He is 6'6". Let's see how big he is. 228, 6'6". He could make that transition if he has decent hands. So right now, with Tommy Tremble out and everything, it seems like Ian Thomas is getting all the action at first string. I haven't really heard much about Sanders yet, Jadavion Sanders. But I will cover that in the training camp battles that I will go over shortly. Now, the first day of pads came out on Tuesday. And in their first padded practice, there was already a scuffle. Chuba Hubbard was carrying the ball, got hit by Jatavion Clowney, popped up, some little scuffle, nothing major, and then they were pulled apart. This is not surprising considering Jatavion Clowney has been talking and beating his chest, talking about how he wants to play hard, he wants the guys playing hard, and then same with Chuba. Dave Canales said he was excited for him to get the pads on because Chuba was ready to go in there and pop somebody. Good. As long as it's that type of situation where it's a scuffle, you get pulled off, there's not ill will. It's just heat of the moment. I mean, most of us have played sports in our past and have those type of situations where later on you're like, oh yeah, that was stupid of me for getting upset. It was a play. But I'm glad they want to win. They want to get better. This is how you do it. You hit each other. You fight. You scratch. You claw. And this is just going to get each other better. I mean, Canales mentioned that earlier about how Robert Hunt and Derek Brown are fighting it out during practice. That he loves what he's seeing from them because two greats are going against each other. I mean, that's what you want. That's how you get better, is playing better people. So very happy with that. I mean, I'm glad it didn't go overboard. A little scuffle's fine. Another thing I've been reading is that Bryce has looked better each practice. He's had some rough patches, but it hasn't been horrible. But it seems like he's getting better. He's getting more familiar with his receivers and everything. And I've seen some very nice passes from him where he fits that ball in very tight windows. Again, no pass rush. These are mostly in shorts. No one's going to hit them even when they're in pads. So take that with a grain of salt. Week 1. The wide receiver room is looking surprisingly deep. I'll get more into this in the training camp battles, but plays from everyone. Deontay Johnson, then we have Thielen catching a nice pass from Bryce Young. Then we have, Jonathan Mingo taking a step up. You get pictures of Leggett just climbing the ladder to get them. And then Terrace Marshall Jr. too. TMJ. He's making some splash plays. Oh yeah, Amir Smith-Marset. Same. I'm reading these guys are all making occasional plays out there. They're not dropping passes. I did see one Deontay Johnson pass drop, but now this is going to be kind of scary to say. But if they can do this when the pads are on and getting hit, maybe the wide receiver room isn't as bad as initially thought, especially with Mingo taking that step up. I mean, Leggett seems to be kind of falling down the line, it seems like. But we'll discuss that. Overall, it was a tale of so far 1 week, so it's hard to say. But the defense looked good the first couple days, and the offense looked better the past couple days. It is what it is. I mean, these practices are so hard to judge just because of the simple fact that there's no pass rush. They're not hitting. The corners are playing man-to-man mostly. There's no scheming involved. So the wide receiver core has looked really good. But again, they're only playing man, and they're playing against our secondary, which is very weak minus J.C. Horn. I know Steven mentioned it in his about how J.C. Horn has looked good, and he has. But the rest of the corners haven't been that great. I've heard Dane Jackson has looked all right. But I'm really looking forward to more videos / when they start really implementing schemes and even some of the preseason games, because at least that way I can kind of see what they're doing. I know it's going to be very vanilla, but some of these guys, I mean, you can't expect Lamar Jackson, cornerback, to cover Deontay Johnson or, even Adam Thielen. You just can't expect him to cover one-on-one like that. He's not that player. He's not going to be. Now, J.C. Horn, I expect to win some of those. So, all right. Woo! Telling you, going solo is hard because I talk and talk and talk. So, let's move on to the training camp battles. Number 1 up is that third wide receiver spot, whether it be the outside or inside, depending on where they place Thielen. But we had Leggett kind of versus the field. Right now, I would say Mingo has that spot. From everything I'm reading, everyone is glowing how Mingo looks good. Canales mentioned it too, how things seem to have slowed down for him. So he's running the right routes, that he's building his confidence. That's what he wants to do with these guys, is he wants to build their confidence over and over again. That way, when they go out on the field, they're feeling confident. They know what they're doing. And it's good. It seems to be working. But right now, I give it to Liggett, or not Liggett, Mingo, and then Liggett, and then Terrace Marshall Jr. But I think you can't count on Emir Smith-Marset. He has such a unique talent. That's one thing that this group has. I mean, Deontay Johnson's not the speediest guy, but he's an excellent route runner with good speed. You have Liggett and Mingo that are more big body physical receivers like Des Bryant or AJ Brown, those type of receivers. You got Thielen, who's another, shifty underneath route runner guy. And then you have Smith Marset, who's speed, gadgets, and he did good when he had the ball in his hands or when he was running routes. So it's very diverse, which I like. So, all right. Edge goes to Mingo there on that training camp battle. Eddie Pinheiro versus thicker kicker Harold Mavis. I think this one's almost done. 1 week in, Eddie Pinheiro hasn't missed a kick. Unless he missed one in pads yesterday, but I don't think he did. Mavis has missed like 3 or 4, but Eddie P has been perfect. I think bringing in the thicker kicker made Pinheiro really go for it this offseason, it looks like, because he's looking great supposedly in camp and not missing anything. I don't know how you go with somebody else if you're not missing kicks. That's just, he's been solid here for a couple years now, so I think that one's almost over. The next one is the tight end room. This is going to be a default because Jatavion Sanders, I haven't really heard much about playing with the ones. I haven't heard much at all about him, to be honest with you. Tommy Trimble's not practicing. They just signed Felipe Franks, a former quarterback. And then you have Stephen Sullivan, who has made a play or two, but I think Ian Thomas has taken almost the majority of the reps at ones, if not all the reps at one. So right now, default, he's winning by availability. I mean, good for him. I mean, cornerback 2. Dane Jackson is the current favorite, I guess. It's still, he's played well supposedly in the preseason or in the training camp so far, but not perfect. But no one else has even come close. I mean, we're looking at Boodle coming off the bench as our next corner. I'm terrified of the depth there. I know they have to do something. Whether it's free agency, whether it's a trade, they have to bring in some more depth back there because with JC's injuries, that is just a scary, scary situation. Now, edge rusher number 3. I'm going to say this one's up in the air as I haven't heard much of anything. I know one of them hasn't been practicing, but I haven't heard of any of these other guys standing out at all. Clavion, Chason, DJ Johnson, Amari Barno, Iku Liada, and Tate Davis. I haven't heard anything. So I guess maybe it's hard to judge edge rushers with, only a little bit, but I feel like you can at least kind of see the bend and see the burst out of the gate in practice, and I haven't heard anything about that. Jatavion Clowney, who's a starter, who's not even in this, has made some plays. I've heard him making plays, especially for a veteran who usually is only signing right around now. I mean, he seems ready to go. And our last training camp battle is running back. Miles Sanders, like Steven said, has had some praise from Dave Canales. He's had some plays where, I guess he was talking junk to the defense because he busted off a big run in pads. So good for him. Chuba, same thing. I've heard good things about him, that he looks bigger, he looks explosive, and he popped Jatavion Clowney, and good. I like that competition. Brooks, not playing. Not shocking. I'll be interested when they expect him to start practicing, but I think this might be a redshirt rookie year almost. Like, he might come in second half of the season, start getting a carry or two, but that drafting him was not for this year. That draft pick was for the future of the franchise, and I get it. When healthy, I think he could be a bell cow running back that we desperately, well, not desperately because we've typically did, but that we need right now. Unless Chuba shows something this offseason or this season. All right. That is going to do it for the training camp battles. Now we're going to go into our stock exchange, our confidence stock, 1 through 10 on each player. And I'm going to throw in a couple new guys on this. So, Bryce Young was a 3.5 last week for Steven and I. I am actually going to keep it exactly the same. I don't feel like anything this week has lowered or raised my expectation and confidence level in him. O-line, last week we had a 6. This was one of our higher confidence level. Nothing yet. I am a little worried that Taylor Moton missed some practice, but he's a veteran. If he's a little sore or something like that, I also get it. So right now I'm going to keep it at a 6. If that injury lingers or Austin Corbett starts, snapping over Bryce's head or under him, then this could go down. But right now I'm going to keep it the same. Pass rushers is a 3. Man, I'm honestly going to drop this to a 2.5. Mostly because I'm shocked with this position being such a group that we're watching and DJ Wanham not starting and nothing's really coming out about that group. Xavier Legette looked great after being drafted, working out and stuff like that. He hasn't splashed yet. He's made some nice plays, but he hasn't splashed. My confidence level, he was a 6. Let's be honest. That was high. I think I gave him that 6. I'm going to drop him down to a 5 right now. Just because the way Mingo, everybody's talking about Mingo, is something I was expecting Legette to get right now. Terrace Marshall Jr., TMJ, 1.5. He's going to get raised up a little bit. I'm going to raise him 1 point. I'm going to go to 2.5 because I keep hearing his name as somebody who is surprising. J.C. Horn was a 6. I'm keeping you at a 6, J.C. Now, there's nothing I could say. You lost a couple one-on-ones to Deontay Johnson and some other players, but one-on-ones occasionally, that's going to happen. I'm not worried about you. Deontay Johnson, 7. I'm actually going to drop this 6.5 because he did have that wide open drop that I'm sure most of our listeners saw. And honestly, that was one of his knocks. So good for him. I mean, not good for him, but that's something to keep an eye on. It makes me a little nervous. Next player on here is Ian Thomas. I always like to add Ian Thomas in there because of Steven's hatred of him. I really want to I think I'm going to do this, guys. I'm going to, since he's available and no one else seems to be available, and he's taking all the first team's reps, I'm going to put him up to a 4.5 just to annoy Steven. He'll probably listen to this episode, but if not, this is going to be funny next week when he looks at what I graded him as. Chuba, 5.75, which is an interesting one. I'm going to stick with it. Miles Sanders was a 4. I'm going to raise it to a 4.5. Miles Sanders, he's made a play or two. I'm going to give him a little bit more credence than maybe I thought he had. Overall for the season, 6.5. Honestly, I think that's about where I'm going to stick with it. Now, I'm going to add a couple here starting week 2. Jonathan Mingo, since he is winning the receiver battle, I am going to go 5. Now, just because of the way everybody's talking about him, he was a project last year. a huge project. Now, everything that encapsulated last year just was awful. We all know this. Coaching, infighting of the coaching, coaches going to Tepper and everything else. And all that, we talked about how Bryce Young was constantly getting drowned out and, how woe was him. Well, on the other side of that is Jonathan Mingo. I mean, we saw his route running look atrocious at times, but he did make some plays. Maybe he needed some confidence. Maybe Dave Canales gets it. Maybe David Canales understood it, and he has worked with him. And Jonathan Mingo also was mentioned going to Bryce Young's Southern California Panthers workouts. So maybe we just jumped the gun on writing him. I probably was way too early jumping the gun on writing him off because I wasn't a big fan out of college. But maybe he can pull something together. Now, Dave Canales. I'm adding Dave Canales on this because everybody loves how he talks, and I am one of them too. Steven hasn't given me any information on this, but I am going to go week 2. My feelings of Dave Canales are, I'm going to go 7. The guy talks the talk. He is so good at making you feel like you can run through that wall, and I love everything he says. He talks about it being a building. Like, he's got to build the structure first. He talks about the fronts, D-line and O-line. You build it from the inside out. He's mentioned this multiple times in his conferences, and I like it. Building inside out. And you see it with what they have done. You have Shai Tuttle, Ashawn Robinson, Derek Brown. Look at that defensive line. That's a strong line. Then you go, they sign Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, Moot Kick, Austin Corbett inside. They're trying to build from the inside out. I can at least see the vision he has. He wants to run the ball. He's going to run the ball through the middle. And I like it. I'm starting off with a 7. He was not my first pick of a coach hire. But I get it. I get why people are excited about him. I get why. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the season. I'm very excited to continue on. Man, it's interesting. I mean, Steven said he's ready for 5 wins, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at too. But this team could also be very good, or very good in the sense that we could actually attempt to get into a wild card slot. That's what I say is very good for this team. We were 2-15. I don't think very good is gonna happen. I think this year we know where we're at, but the NFC South isn't that great. And a couple things go our way, maybe pound the rock. God, I mean, Steve Wilkes had this team running the ball well. So I know it's completely different teams, but you never know, man. I maybe it's just me. I love the run first type of mindset. I think that's what Bryce needs. I think a lot of it'll help him with his play action and getting him out in space. Kind of get those defensive linemen, on their toes a little bit. If they know the ball is constantly getting ran at, they're not going to be able to just pin their ears back and go after Bryce. Let's hope. Really like it. I do hope Steven will be back next week as talking for 25 minutes solo. Probably not the best podcast, but maybe I'll invite a guest on if he can't go next week. But either way, I want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMixPodcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Honestly, guys, email us. I will read it on the show, especially if Steven isn't here, because again, talking solo is hard. I don't know how some of these radio personalities do it solo all the time. But they do. Either way, we'll be back next week. I want to thank everyone for listening. Everybody out there, stay safe and keep pounding.